to the Angry Habs Fan Podcast Show, Episode 2. I am the Angry Habs Fan, broadcasting live from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. It is Sunday, September 18th, 2016. Beautiful fall day. It's not quite fall yet, but it's almost here. And when fall's here, it means one and one thing only, and that means hockey is here. And hockey is indeed here. The World Cup has been going on all week. The preseason closed up, and the actual tournament started up last night. 4 teams were in action, 2 games. We'll talk about that later. A lot to talk about there. The Montreal Canadiens were in the news this week for quite the wrong reasons, unfortunately. Max Pacioretty having a bit of a tough time at the World Cup. Not only that, Michel Therrien not helping Max Pacioretty's cause in any way, shape, or form. We'll discuss that as well. Michel Therrien's big mouth was in action again this week. Allegedly, of course. But we'll be discussing that. It's a busy week in hockey. The Habs training camp, that is the rookie training camp, opened up. So there's some action there going on. Usually the rookie camp, though followed, doesn't quite have much of an importance on a year-to-year basis when you look at the regular team. But this year is a bit different. Quite a few players this year that I think Hab fans are looking at. And I think there's players, quite a lot of them, that are playing in this rookie camp that have a pretty good shot at making the team, or possibly do. So we'll be talking about that as well. And thank you all for the comments, the emails. I really appreciate it. I realized we had a few problems with the audio. I hope the audio on this show is a lot better. I myself am a total noob in doing podcasts, so this has definitely been a crash course in learning a lot of things. The first being social media. I found that very interesting, having to promote this show. I am on social media, I just haven't quite participated on it like I did when I started the show. So I found that quite interesting. I have actually a little tip for future podcasters that I found quite helpful to find all the sites. On YouTube they have simply a share button, and I think like 10 or 15 icons come up. And that pretty much gives you a roadmap of all the social media sites. So that was easy and appreciated. However, it was still a lot of work signing up and getting them all done and so on and so forth. But I'm out there now, so I'm happy about that. There's also the whole technical aspect to making a podcast that was quite new to me. I never thought putting together 4 audio files would be so difficult, but it was. And I have a personal thank you to my sweetheart, my beloved, for helping me out. She's definitely the techer on our side of the family. And unfortunately for us, we had 4 files to put together, and the system we were using was, for some reason, cutting out the ends of the segments. We worked very hard to put it back together and to make sure that all the segments were intact. But ironically and unfortunately, I did lose an end of a segment from last week. You could probably hear me trail off, and it kind of ends. And that's when I was talking about Max Pacioretty during the good, bad, and ugly segment. And it's unfortunate that got cut off. I had a nice little, I guess I'd call it a rant, but it wasn't really a rant. It was more of a fantasy scenario where I was John Tortorella staring at Max Pacioretty, describing what was on my mind as I watched him sitting there in the 3rd period after the first exhibition game. Max Pacioretty hasn't been playing very well. We'll discuss that in a bit. Anyways, so that got cut out and we couldn't save it. So I apologize for that. And of course, the next day, all the Max Pacioretty news broke. So it could have been apropos, as they say. Anyways, we'll try to fix those problems, make sure that never happens again. And we'll move on to our first segment, which I'm going to call the Max Pacioretty Saga. The Max Pacioretty Saga. Yes, it is a saga. It might not have started as a saga, but it certainly has turned into one. I think to fully follow what this story is about, we have to pretty much start at the beginning. when he was nominated captain. I was actually not sure about this. I had to look into it. He was voted captain by his teammates. It's nice to hear that. It's a lot better than when you're nominated by the organization and it doesn't go so well, because at least you have your teammates who are supporting you and who think you are made of captain material. However, when he was nominated, me personally, I didn't want him to be captain. I didn't think he was captain material. I personally preferred myself, I'll just put it out there now, Brendan Gallagher. I thought that, you know, especially considering the people that I thought wanted to be captain on the Montreal Canadiens, I thought Brendan Gallagher was a safer choice. It was also a good compromise choice. I see Gallagher on the Montreal Canadiens for many, many, many years. I don't think anyone has anything bad to say about Gallagher. I think he's a natural leader, and you know, I think he would have made a great captain, but they decided not to go that way, and Max Pacioretty was nominated. The reason I bring all this up is because, if you remember, this was 2 years ago. He was nominated. However, there were other candidates, so we were told through the news. And anytime a captain of the Montreal Canadiens is being selected, it's a bit of a, it's covered like the elections here. Other candidates, supposedly, of course, because this is all internal, but other candidates were, of course, PK Subban was probably definitely interested. There's no doubt in my mind there were other candidates as well. Names that come to mind are Tomasz Plekanec, a guy who's been on the team for a long time. Another man, of course, would be Andrei Markov, the oldest guy on the team. Could have definitely been captain. You know, so there was definitely competition during that nomination process. I don't know how it went. I don't know who came second. I don't know who came third, whatnot. But Max Pacioretty won. And you'd think the story ends there. But of course, with the modern Montreal Canadiens, it never does. Upon winning the nomination, Michel Therrien and Marc Bergevin both were so happy that they reportedly jumped into their car and drove over to Max Pacioretty's house to announce who had won the captaincy, which was him, of course. And they were so excited they went to the wrong house. This has been reported in the news. They eventually did find the right house. And they all hugged. I don't know. I don't know. You know, it's a weird way to break the news and the age of information, but so be it. So Max Pacioretty was the captain of the Montreal Canadiens 2 years ago. I was fine with that. It's so hard to tell what's going on in the dressing room. I'm certainly not around the dressing room. There's more qualified people to tell me, you know, the vibe of who brings what to the dressing room. And he was picked, and I said, well, we'll see, you know. And so 2 years goes by, and we'll go to last year, where last year, of course, fell apart. And when the hockey season falls apart like it did last year, a lot of times we start hearing things from the dressing room that generally you wouldn't hear because people are unhappy or what, you know, for whatever reasons. And you start hearing things that well, are distressing. And one of the things we heard a lot last year was just a huge lack of leadership in that dressing room. And not only did we hear it, but frankly, we saw it. There's no two ways about it. I think the room got really cliquey last year. When I say cliquey, I mean with cliques. You know, groups of different friends and people that like people sticking together and whatnot. You know, and this all led to this summer with PK Subban being traded. Now, I'm not saying that is the reason he got traded, but I could probably say with 100% assurity that that is definitely a factor in why he was traded. PK Subban was the best player on the Montreal Canadiens last year. Let's just put that out there right now, by far. Every night he showed up, he played hard, made mistakes, yes, controversial, yes, but there was no other player on the ice that stood out like PK Subban the entire year. And near the end of the year, we started hearing that people were upset with him. They didn't like his attitude. They didn't like him. They had problems with who he was. They had problems with the fact that he wasn't. He had his own line of clothing that he was displaying and not displaying official Montreal Canadiens apparel, if you will. People had problems with that. Anyways, I don't know who had problems with what. I don't know the insides and outs of the complaints, but the complaints were reported. They were there and well documented. And that's important as well, because though some people think that a captain might not be as important or might be overstated, I personally disagree, because I think that when you do have a lack of leadership, you get what happened last year, which is what I just described. And nobody wants that in their dressing room in a professional hockey team. And for me, the captain's job number one is to make sure that the dressing room is on the same page. A lot of personalities, a lot of different people, I understand all that, but that is the captain's job, and that is why he's chosen, and that is why he has to do what he does, is to make sure that everyone's on the same page and they're all there to win hockey games, and there's no cliques and there's no lack of leadership and there's no controversies and everything stays in the dressing room. These are all kind of jobs of the captain. I was quite surprised to hear in the media some analysts that I actually respect downplaying the role of the captaincy as if it wasn't important. I find that absolutely ludicrous. I've played hockey for 15 years of my life, and I didn't play in any professional leagues or anything like that. I went to midget, and the captain was always important, always. And if it's important in the lower leagues that I played in, then it's certainly not getting less important as you get towards the professional leagues. The coaches rely on the captain for communication. I can go down the list of different jobs that the captain has that are very important. They are often the link between management and the players to get an inside view of what's going on, and you just can't downplay that. You can't always see everything. You can't hear everything. There's a lot of things going on. These are human beings, and that takes a lot of management. So anyways, last year there was a definite lack of leadership. There's no doubt about that. And, Max Pacioretty's the captain. Now, is it all his fault? Is it his fault at all? That's up for debate. I think he has to take part of the blame, no doubt about it. I think the coach has to take part of the blame, no doubt about it. But that's not a good thing to have happen to your hockey team. And so I think there's a lot of bitter taste in people's mouth from last year, both on the team and in the organization. And that led to the start of the World Cup. And Max Pacioretty, unfortunately, in the first two preseason games, had a very slow start. Let's just say it. He played very badly. He was firmly implanted in my ugly of the good, bad, and ugly of last week. He was pretty much a no-show in the two games, first two games. In the third game, Tortorella moved him around to, I think he was on the line with Kessler, and it was much improved. They actually got a goal, and it seemed like things might be getting back to normal over there. But Max was playing bad. He was just playing bad, and not only that, but Tortorella ended up calling him out after game two, saying he needed a lot more from that player and knew he could deliver a lot more, and so on and so forth. I have to say, Tortorella, I mean, I know in a sense Tortorella is kind of has no choice here, but at the same time, I kind of expected him to just bench him. That's the kind of coach Tortorella is. Go sit in the press box if you're not playing hockey for me. And but as we saw in the Europe game, USA needs Max. They need him scoring. They need him shooting. And, anyways, so that was a controversy that broke in the press in Montreal last week. Tortorella calling out our captain. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing as a Habs fan. It's embarrassing for the organization that your captain is in the news for all the wrong reasons. And so that's pretty much where the Max Pacioretty saga, and that's why I called it a saga, because it is over 2 years. It started at the start of his captaincy, and you'll see why this is all important as I lead into our next segment, which is called, of course, Michel Therrien's Big Mouth. Welcome to Michel Therrien's Big Mouth. Not exactly a place you want to be, so I suggest you simply turn around and walk away. Beautiful Sunday last Sunday in Montreal, and Michel Therrien woke up and decided to go to a golf tournament. At that tournament, a reporter overheard him saying that Max Pacioretty is the worst captain in Montreal Canadiens history. Now, it is being reported that that was also heard by 7 to 8 other people. When at the tournament he said this is unsure, but from what I know of golf, you don't have 7 to 8 to 9 people around you when you're golfing. Might be at the tee, but I could easily see this happening in the big tent afterwards. You know, you got a glass of wine, you're eating, and people are asking you questions. I'm guessing here. But this is the big controversy that brewed in Montreal this week. And hasn't really been covered in the mainstream media. The radio stations have covered it, which I'll discuss in a second. However, you know, it's become a story of he said, she said, so some people aren't quite covering it. But it's certainly being covered in Hab world. Michel Therrien, you know. And over at TSN 990, Tony Marinero, has a great piece up explaining why he thinks it's true, why he thinks Michel Therrien did say this, and I recommend you go listen to it. Tony's much more experienced and better at what he does than I am, and you know, and I agree with everything he says pretty much. The person reporting this, Michel Villeneuve, works for a radio station as well now. However, Hab fans who have followed the Habs for a long time know who Michel Villeneuve is. He was the play-by-play guy on TVA or something, and but he's spent his entire career covering the Montreal Canadiens, and Tony Marinero thinks that he's a pretty trustworthy source, and when he says something that's generally true and he doesn't report falsities, and we should take his word for it. So that's good enough for me, and I do agree. Why report this if it isn't true? Now, before the recording of this podcast today on Sunday, by the way, Michel Therrien disappeared. There's been no comment. Max Pacioretty commented. Nathan Beaulieu commented, all in support of Max Pacioretty and so on and so forth. But Michel Therrien kind of disappeared for a while. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Marc Bergevin drove over on Monday morning, grabbed him, and threw him in the car. And they drove over to Jeff Molson's bunker there under the Jacques Cartier Bridge by the factory. You know, throw him into a cell, you know, leave him with a box of water, you know, and call the press conference coach, you know, send them in. Repeat after me. Max Pacioretty is a great captain. I look forward to him captaining my team this year. So on and so forth for the next week. Very possible. You know, if I was rich, I would have a bunker. Why not? Why not? So anyways, he's disappeared. However, he reappeared this morning on Sunday with some comments. Of course, Sunday being a great press day. But he's in partial denial of the comments, apparently. He's going the route of they misquoted me or misunderstood me. I think that's a mistake. I think he should just come forward and apologize and say, you know, just apologize and move on. A little short-term pain for long-term gain, because now as it stands with this partial denial, it's just catnip and fodder for the Montreal press. They're going to go seek out the 7-8 people that overheard it as well. This now might drag out, which is exactly what you don't want. So maybe my little scenario there of Michel in the bunker actually didn't happen. Should have. Really should have. And, you know, it would be fine if Michel Therrien had a history of not having these scandals occur. However, there have been past situations where Michel Therrien has made statements that have collectively turned the entire hockey world's head. When he was coaching for the Pittsburgh Penguins, they were having a tough year. I think Crosby was injured that year. And after a tough loss again, he basically threw his entire defense under the bus at a press conference. I think his exact words were, "My defense sucks." You know, I've never heard a coach say something like that. Drew a lot of media, a lot of comments at the time. You know, so he definitely has a history of flying off the cuff and saying things that are certainly not supposed to be said by a coach. Hence Michel Therrien's big mouth. So, is it true? Is it not true? It'll be a continuing saga. One thing is definitely for sure is Michel Therrien is now, if he wasn't on a shorter rope before, he certainly is now. I think the bar has been raised much higher for him. I think Hab fans, whether this be true or not, are at their rope's end, if you will. Continue the analogy, you know, bring out the noose. And, you know, Therrien this year has no wiggle room. He went from having maybe just the slightest of wiggle room to no wiggle room. If the Montreal Canadiens start losing, he's going to start sweating about his job, as he should, frankly. I personally don't know how he's still coaching after last year. He showed that he showed all his limitations as a coach. It was a bit ugly, and you know, I think last year was a good time to move on from Therrien when things were unredeemable, and we could have started building with a new coach. But the organization, Marc Bergevin in particular, decided not to, and now we are definitely living with those consequences. And one of those consequences is now Therrien has to win a lot, has to make the Canadiens an excellent team, but I would even go further now. He has to go far in the playoffs. If he doesn't, he's gone next year. I think even for Marc Bergevin, whether this be true or not, and again, I think it's true, and I think Bergevin probably thinks it's true too. And, you know, how do you think Marc Bergevin feels right now after standing up for Michel Therrien for the last 6 months? You know, doing so more so than any other GM I think would have. So we're at this point, which leads me to the following point, unfortunately, because I do like Marc Bergevin. I think he's made some good moves. I think he's made some bad moves. You know, maybe the verdict's still out on him, but you know, I think one of his bad moves might have been hiring Therrien, to be frank with you. When Therrien got hired, he was considered one of the better options available, if not the best option. And I would agree. I would agree. If I remember correctly, I think Bob Hartley was runner-up. Of course, Bob Hartley is still an outcast in this Switzerland, Siberia, and you know, there's a reason for that. So we hired Michel Therrien. At the time, I was fine with that. We needed to turn the page. We needed to bring a guy in who had coached before. And I saw Michel Therrien as a 1 to 2 year solution just to get the train back on the tracks and to move forward. Unfortunately, now we're 4 years later. And I think we're starting to see that Michel Therrien, though the best option at the time, is a very limited coach. He's very good at what he does, but there are things he doesn't do. One of them is I think he handles young talent very poorly. There's been no record of him handling them well. I think it hurts our team. This notion of always punishing the youth for making mistakes is antithesis to what you're supposed to do with youth players. They're supposed to make mistakes and learn from them. I can understand if a youth player constantly makes the same mistake and you have to send a message, but that's not the case with the Montreal Canadiens. Everyone knows once they make a mistake, they're sitting out in the press box for the next 4 or 5 games. Sure, they might get another crack, but you know, that's not the way you're supposed to handle it. And, well, that is most certainly how Michel Therrien handles it. And that's why I would rank him poorly in that category. We have a lot of possible young players coming up right now. And I'll be honest with you, I worry for them. You know, Michel Therrien has no record of bringing up young people. People might point to his tenure as the coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins and how he set them up for a Stanley Cup, but you know, we're talking about first-round picks here, first picks. You know, I mean, how much is Michel Therrien really adding to that? You know, it's not a good scenario. The youth coming up don't need a Michel Therrien, and so we're coming to a head on that, and it could get ugly. This is why I'm apprehensive about this year generally, is I think the Montreal Canadiens fans' patience is wearing thin. I think they're willing to give them a shot. At least they see Marc Bergevin trying to make his team better. But, you know, if it doesn't do well and Therrien can't get his team rolling, you know, if Carey Price has a mediocre season, forget about it. You know, he's done. And I'll be honest, I don't see him coaching again in the NHL. I don't see it. I see him, unfortunately for all of us, on RDS. And, you know, maybe we'll have to, you know, RDS is losing hockey, so maybe we could do without him on there as well. As you can see, I'm not the biggest fan, and I think it's time for him to go. I think what he said at the golf tournament is, quite frankly, a fireable offense on the spot. Don't understand why Marc Bergevin is not firing him. And I think the whole ordeal, again, looks horrible on our organization. What is it with this club? I mean, you know, we have this reputation in the world of being this glorious, respected organization. However, I think most modern-day followers of the Montreal Canadiens, including myself, I have to dispute that. I can't live with this lie anymore that we're some kind of vaunted organization that knows what they're doing. And, you know, I know that Marc Bergevin has righted our ship to a certain degree. I understand that, but it's been 20 years of watching people come in not knowing what they're doing sometimes, often I should say, rookie GMs, so on and so forth, rookie coaches, just things that you thought you would never see. Mike Camilleri being traded to Calgary and being told to leave his sweater behind. I mean, you know, things like that where you're just like, this is the Montreal Canadiens, or Michel Therrien is saying Max Pacioretty is the worst captain in Montreal Canadiens history. Not even to mention he's factually wrong. I know the Montreal Canadiens have a huge captains list that is absolutely full of legends, and there's just no doubt about it. I actually have it out in front of me. I had to look because, you know, my knowledge of the Canadiens gets a little fuzzy in the olden days, and of course, there are great captains, you know, absolutely. However, there are 2 captains that I see right off the bat that, well, they probably weren't so hot. I could be wrong. You know, I have Bill Coutu in 1925 and 1926, 33 games, 6 points. He was captain for 1 year. I have Walt Buswell, 1939-1940, he played 46 games and had 4 points. Both were one-year captains. You know, may I suggest these are perhaps worse captains than Max Pacioretty. So factually wrong. You know, and perhaps maybe others. Who knows? Not to mention, Max Pacioretty has been captain of the Montreal Canadiens for a grand total of 2 seasons. Now, one thing looking at this list is most of the captains of the Montreal Canadiens have had 5+ years to demonstrate their captaincies. And I don't think 2 years is enough time to at least declare that he's the worst captain in Montreal Canadiens history. So I think there's a good level of just plain old idiocy involved here. Sorry, Michel Therrien, but you know, there are even other captains that could have been worse. So you're even wrong on that level. So Michel Therrien's big mouth strikes again, and we all have to deal with it. And you know, he's gonna really need a lot of help this season. I worry because, like I was saying before, Marc Bergevin is a decent GM, but I think we're almost at the point here where we might have to get rid of both of them in order to get rid of the coach. It seems like Michel Therrien, there's nothing he can do that spites Mike Bergevin, and of course Mike Bergevin is probably talking to Jeff Molson, so you know, I don't know what needs to happen for this to happen, and I think it would be a mistake if Marc Bergevin leaves the organization by sinking on the Michel Therrien's big mouth SSS, you know. Down they go together, you know, throw the man a life jacket, you know. It's just awful. Anyways, that was Michel Therrien's big mouth. We'll now move into the weekly segment of The Good, Bad, and Ugly. We'll talk mostly about World Cup, since we haven't touched on it at all. Like I said, it's a busy week in hockey, so this podcast is a little longer than usual. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every time we start this weekly segment, I feel like doing the whistling from the movie. You know, the... Never was a good whistler. But I'm afraid to be flagged by YouTube and sent to online purgatory, so I've avoided doing that. For all I know, they just flagged my whistling. So welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This week will be a World Cup edition. We haven't really talked much about the World Cup with everything that's been going on with the Montreal Canadiens, in particular Michel Therrien's big mouth. So we'll start off with the good right away. Last night Team Canada and Czech Republic played, and Team Canada pretty much dismantled Czech Republic 6-0. So they definitely belong in the good. They played a great game. We'll look at the Habs players that played in that game. Shea Weber, I have very little to say except he played a good game. He looks solid out there. He got some good shots on net. You know, second most used defenseman on Team Canada. That's chock full of all-stars. So, you know, I have nothing bad to say about his performance. Let's hope that continues. And of course, Carey Price was in net. He registered a shutout, and Montreal Canadian fans will be very happy about that. 60 solid minutes of play for Carey Price, playing high-level hockey. Again, Carey Price with the asterisks, and that asterisk is I haven't played since Christmas. Look good. You know, I was a little disappointed in the analysis after the game. Everyone was singing his praises like he had played the greatest game, one of his greatest games. And, you know, that's not the case. I think a more honest analysis would say he held the fort in the first, and the team took over after and took care of business. And what more do you want from your goalie? In the first period, the Czech Republic came out, and in particular in the first 10 minutes, they got 2-3 shots on net. and Carey Price was there, made nice saves, and one or two of those could have gone in. And Team Canada fans know that when a team like the Czech Republic scores early, a quick goal or two, that is pretty much the way to beat Team Canada, is to get on them early and deconcentrate them. But that's not what happened when you have a good goalie. Makes those saves. Carey Price made those saves. And then the rest of the game, he made other saves, of course. He faced 27 shots, but nothing that scared me. A backhander in the third hit the crossbar. He had no chance on it. It was an absolute gorgeous shot. Good game. Good game from Price. Looking good. Very good news for Hab fans. And as far as Team Canada goes, of course, good news all around there. In particular, two lines stood out. The Crosby, Bergeron, Marchand line, of course, drove Team Canada pretty much. What a player Patrice Bergeron is. A guy who often is not much talked about in the NHL, you know, and not only that, but is definitely one of those players who's had a very interesting career. Everyone remembers when he started, he was often injured, horrible injuries. Could have ended his career, and to see him bounce back and become the kind of hockey player that he's become is, you know, I have a lot of respect for that man, and he belongs on Team Canada. It's ironic because every time Patrice Bergeron gets picked to play for his country, you know, people kind of hesitate on his name, and I hope people stop, because we're seeing what kind of player he is. Of course, he's playing with Crosby and his line mate Marchand, which always helps. But he's a good hockey player, and of course Crosby's the best hockey player in the world. You know, has been for a decade. I'm sorry, I know he's had off years, but you know, if you had one of those fantasy drafts and you got to pick anyone you wanted first, who do you pick? Well, you know, if you want to win a Stanley Cup, you pick Crosby. Pure and simple. And so Team Canada running on all cylinders, looking great. Let's hope that continues. So let's move from Team Canada. We'll move to Europe, the Europe Team USA game, where Europe shockingly beat Team USA 3-0. And it wasn't that shocking, at least not when I saw the game. Last week I praised the US. I said they were looking great, and they were. They were playing good hockey. But this is why Europe belongs on the good. They quickly figured out the USA, which was not quite hard to do. Europe basically played the trap against their top two lines. Their offensive lines, Team USA's, had a lot of trouble penetrating the zone. You know, Europe played a trap. At times they had all five players behind their own blue line waiting for the wave to come in. So, you know, Team USA didn't have an answer, and Europe figured them out quick, and Europe buried their chances when they got them, and they deserved to win 3-0, and good for them. They belong in the good. I will say this about Europe, for those fretting when they meet Team Canada on the third game, I'm not too worried about it. We have four lines that can put the puck in the net. That's a lot of trapping to do. And not to mention, I'll get to it in the bad, but you know, when you have a good coach, and I do think Babcock, unfortunately, is a good coach, since he's a Toronto Maple Leaf, and let me be clear about that. But he is a good coach, and you know, he'll adapt, and you know, unlike Tortorella didn't, which I'll talk about in the bad. So I'm not too worried about Europe and their trapping. I think we have the talent to break that, and if they do that and we score one or two goals, it's game over. So yeah, so that's my opinion on that. Anyways, we'll move along in the good, because there's a bit more to report. Habs rookie camp opened this week, and always good news when they're in the good, because they played two exhibition games And in the first one, they beat the Mini Penguins 8-3. Pretty much demolished them. And for Hab fans, the great news about that is the prospects that were involved in the scoring, Sherbak, Lettinen, and McCarron, all names that Hab fans are aware of, all names that played last year, all youth that have a chance at making the starting lineup of the Montreal Canadiens, were heavily involved in the scoring in that game. Other names of note, Sergachev had a decent game, what was reported, but wasn't really all that seen or apparent. I'm just reporting this secondhand. I didn't see the game. But that was the first game. The second game was last night. They played the Toronto Mini Maple Leafs, and they lost 4-3. However, again, the names were in the score sheet. Sherbak, Lettinen, and McCarron. And the good news is Sergachev had a great game. Really great game. So, you know, the top four prospects of the Montreal Canadiens seem to be playing some good hockey. And when the regular training camp opens, I'm hoping very much that these four challenge some of the players that think they are going to make the Montreal Canadiens, because these guys might be able to bring a new air to the team, a new freshness. You know, McCarron's a big center. Sergachev, a offensive defenseman. You know, all down the list, these guys bring tools that I think the Montreal Canadiens are definitely lacking. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. They'll be followed closely. So that's about it for the good for this week. We'll move to the bad. And in the bad, we find Team USA. I was explaining it a little earlier on. And Team USA, of course, lost 3-0 to Europe. And I put them in the bad because it's not that they played a bad game, though they kind of did. And I'll explain that. Europe played a trap, as I said. And Team USA did not adapt. They didn't adapt to the play. It was obvious in the first period that they were trapping, that they were kind of breaking out off the trap and trying to get those goals, and it was working. And, you know, I think John Tortorella kind of dropped the ball here. You know, you got to kind of adapt. He didn't. It was obvious to me in the first 2 minutes what Europe was up to. I think it led directly to the second goal of Patrick Kane, of, you know, Kane trying to do too much, and, you know, they're just trapping and playing defense, and he loses the puck and they're on a 2-on-0. And, you know, at that point, you got to play dump and chase. You know, you got to hope that your talent is better. Not hope, it is better. You know, Team USA on paper, I think, is better than Europe. And you chase the puck, and, you know, you get your chances that way. And that way it negates any possible 2-on-0s. I mean, you know, Jonathan Quick's a good goalie, but you can't let 2-on-0s happen. Not good. Therefore, definitely in the bad, Team USA and John Tortorella. And let me also say this about Team USA. We touched about it last week, about how they built an NHL-style team, 2 offensive lines, 2 defensive lines, and a checking line. And it's never good news when your opposing team has completely figured you out in the first game. You know, they have to play 2 more games. They have to win them or they're out. And basically, teams now know that if you stop the 2 top lines, you're going to probably win. And so Team USA in a bit of trouble. Surprisingly. We'll see what happens. 2 more games. Boy, do you think they could use Phil Kessel now? I know, watching the game myself, Kane stood out, Pavelski stood out, but you know, the offense was lacking, and that's right up Phil Kessel's alleyway. Of course they could use Phil Kessel. That could turn out to be a huge mistake. We'll see. Anyways, let's move on. Of course, still in the bad, Thomas Plekanec for Hab fans. I put him in the bad, but it was with reservation. his team was bad. Lack of talent, lack of speed, lack of creativity of offense. Just a bad hockey team. You know, especially when you're playing against a Team Canada rolling on all cylinders, you look even worse. However, I expected more from Thomas Plekanec. I watched him play during the preseason a bit, and I like what I saw. He was playing great. He was hitting. He was scoring. You know, the reports coming out were all true. He was leading his team. You know, Thomas friggin' Plekanec. And for Montreal, long-term Montreal Canadian fans, you know, this isn't new. Thomas Plekanec plays well internationally. You know, what that means, I don't know. But again, what is not new is, and why he's in the bad, primarily, is even though he stood out for the Czech Republic and was one of their better players, he still disappeared. And Thomas Plekanec has a history of disappearing when the games count. Montreal Canadian fans know that in the playoffs, Thomas Plekanec often disappears. And I can't explain it. I'm told it's because he plays such great defense. You know, I didn't see the defense against Team Canada. You know, you can't use that excuse on me there. You know, yes, the team around him is weak, but, you know, just he showed up for the 3 preseason games. I don't understand why he's not showing up for the first actual game of the tournament. That's why, for me, he belongs in the bad. If he played with, I don't know, more of a standout game, he might be in the good, even though he lost 6-0. It has nothing to do with the scoreline. It has to do with how he played. So that should pretty much cover up the bad. And I think I mentioned John Tortorella. If I didn't, he is in the bad. Didn't adjust. Just didn't adjust. Europe played the trap on him, and the team kept bringing in the puck and kept trying to... Oh, actually, I forgot to mention Max Pacioretty, so glad I'm bringing this up. You know, the team kept trying to carry the puck into the zone. And this is almost the entire game. And they kept losing it. Plays broken up, bodies falling, things that and the other. And generally what would happen is the puck would get dumped out, and the USA would then rinse and repeat and try again, lose the puck dumped out, and Tortorella had no answer. And it's sad that Tortorella had no answer. I think he thought maybe his talent was more than what Europe was showing, but the answer to that is to play dump and chase, is to throw it in the corner. I know it sucks, it's boring hockey, but if you have better talent than the other team and you play dump and chase, you're going to win. You're going to get a bounce, you're going to get the puck on the forecheck, you're going to get a play, you know, and it allows you to play a better defense on a counter-attack team. I barely saw any of that. Team USA kept bringing the puck in and kept losing it. It was hard to watch. So Tortorella, you know, look at your players and blame them, but there must be a mirror nearby, and it's time to take a look. And that'll lead me to Max Pacioretty. I don't want to forget him, especially with what I just said. Basically, that was Max Pacioretty's game. Bring the puck in, lose it, or throw it in the middle and lose it there. I just covered 60 minutes from Max Pacioretty's view, and you know, it's pretty disappointing. Very little creativity. You know, it's got to play better. It's got to play better, and for Montreal Canadian fans, that's not good news if your captain's starting out this way. He's got to get his engine going, not only for himself, but for Team USA and for the Habs. So I'd rather see him playing better hockey. So he belongs in the bad as well this week. So that's the bad. And to move this along, we'll move to the ugly quickly. And, you know, I think this week I reserve the ugly primarily for Michel Therrien. And, I mean, if there was another category that was below ugly, like just I don't know, anyways, he'd probably be in it. Just Max Pacioretty is the worst captain in Montreal Canadiens history. It has to be one of the worst statements I've ever heard from a head coach of the Montreal Canadiens. I mentioned earlier he's on borrowed time. He already was on borrowed time before this incident. And now he's on, now the phone's ringing and the loan collectors are calling, and he's just gotten nowhere to go here. Just nowhere to go. And the sad part about this is from game one, I have a feeling Michel Therrien is going to be like coaching on the edge. Just this, I have to win coaching. The pressure of it, and unfortunately, as we've seen, because this happens often with the Montreal Canadiens, the pressure of having to win, some people react badly to it. And I from what I've seen from Michel Therrien, when the chips are down and things are going badly, I don't think he reacts well. So I don't like the idea of Michel Therrien coaching on the edge, if I can use that expression. It leads to bad decisions, and not to mention what I mentioned before, these youth players coming up. If you're coaching to win and you're on the edge and you're kind of panicky, you got Sherback out there and he loses the puck and it leads to a game-winning goal. Well, you're in the press box. I can't afford to have you out there. We've been watching Therrien now, and that's all he seems to know what to do with the youth. Unless you're a Galchenyuk, and even then, Galchenyuk has been playing half his career on the wing, if not more. It's only now we see him at center. So, a lot of questionable decisions. So Michel Therrien coaching on the edge is not fun for anybody who's a Hab fan. And yeah, Michel Therrien, really ugly this week. Michel Terrien's big mouth in the ugly. So let's move on to Montreal Canadian news, another weekly segment for those who might be overseas or don't have access to Montreal Canadian news or don't speak French. That's something that you have to be able to understand what the hell's going on in Montreal. By the way, I am French. I don't have an accent, I know. And so there's no problem there. So we'll move to the news. As I said, the Hab rookie camp, has opened. Really, I already covered it in the good and the bad and the ugly, so they're off to a good start. As I said, the main names are out there. They're doing well. So we can move on from that quickly. In other news, last week I reported that Martin Riwe has been hospitalized due to a virus. And I was saying that was bad news, obviously, and he was going to miss the whole training camp. Well, things have gotten worse for Martin Riwe, unfortunately, and we all wish him well, by the way. Get well very, very soon. Apparently he had to be moved hospitals to more advanced ICU care, intensive care unit. So not only that, but Dr. Mulder is personally, I believe, in the country with him. Now, anyone who follows the Montreal Canadiens knows that Dr. Mulder is their head physician. Anyone who follows the Habs also knows that anytime Dr. Mulder is involved, it is very bad news. So his condition worsened, and everybody here in Montreal, everybody in Hab Nation is thinking about him and wishing him to get better and well soon. As well in Montreal, other Canadian news, Nathan Beaulieu, there were rumors this week of Nathan Beaulieu being on the move, possible trade rumors. Now, not many names were suggested, but I did see a blurb about Shattenkirk being available in St. Louis, that might be connected to Nathan Beaulieu. But that was about it for that rumor. I mean, it was about a day where everyone was like, Nathan Beaulieu might get traded. You know, for those who don't follow the Montreal Canadiens regularly, that might seem like a panic thing, but this happens often with the Montreal Canadiens. Weekly, there could be at least one trade rumor, at least, and 90% of the time to 95% of the time, it leads to nothing. So that's why I'm a little blasé about it. Nathan Beaulieu has been involved in trade rumors for at least a good year or two now. Old news. There might be smoke there. One day there just might be a trade. I don't know. I do know that the Habs this year are hoping that Nathan Beaulieu can make up for a bit of the lack of offense that we lost with PK Subban. I don't think anyone's hiding that. So anyways, he was in the rumor mill this week. I'm not sure how much weight is on that, but just thought I'd throw it out there. Since really it's been quiet, really. I've already spoken about Pacioretty versus Michel Therrien. That was really what dominated Montreal Canadian news and pretty much this podcast. And boy, I hope it is if it's not true, I just wasted everyone's time, and I apologize for that, but I hope it's not true. It'd make life a lot easier, but there's a little too much evidence here. So yeah, that dominated the news. So since it's a long podcast, we'll close off the news segment here, and we'll move to conclusion. A pretty good second episode, I think. Definitely longer, no doubt about that. I can't guarantee it'll always be this long. Due to the controversies that swirled this week, I had a few things to say about a few things, so things ran a bit longer today. I appreciate everyone listening. It's been a horrible start for the Montreal Canadiens if this Michel Therrien thing pans out to be true. Training camp opening with coach calling out the captain is probably picture-perfect nightmare scenario, frankly. Needless to say, even if they patch it up and let bygones be bygones and whatnot, there's still a cloud there, and with the partial deniability today from Mr. Therrien, the press is going to hunt those 7-8 people to get exact quotes. Not only that, but get ready for this question at the following press conferences. What exactly did you say, Mr. Therrien? Oh, I said he is one of the worst captains of the Montreal Canadiens. Whatever. If he wants to play that game, he can play that game. He'll have backers. There's definitely Michel Therrien fans in the press, but as far as the whole of Hab Nation goes, I don't think Michel Therrien is going to win any presidency any day soon. So that's a very, very dangerous game to play. And not only that, but it gives the chance for this controversy to continue into the regular training camp. This should have been buried Monday, Tuesday. Should have been done. Sorry, didn't mean it. Had 2 glasses of wine, 3 glasses of wine. Sorry. More understandable than, these 7-8 people and a reporter misunderstand me, and, oops, and if it turns out that, he was actually on the golf course yelling it across the golf course, well, even worse. So yeah, so that definitely was a big part of this podcast this week. Fortunately, it took a lot of time away from analysis of the World Cup. It was scant and quick, but there's more games today that I'm actually currently missing taping this, but I have them recording, so I'll be looking at those. And the outlook for Team Canada is great. If they keep playing like this, they're going to win this tournament. No chance, unless I see another team playing like that today, or I didn't see it against, Europe. It's not going to be Team Canada. You know, Crosby's on fire. He just, you know, I said last week he's got that a mad look on his face, and I'm really happy about that. And I was, but now he's happy. He's smiling. I'm even happier about that. Look at me, the angry Hab fan, loving smiles. And but you keep smiling, Crosby. You know, you keep getting 3-point games, smiling, winning face-offs, doing what you got to do. Bergeron, you know, and you know, I haven't even mentioned the other line that impressed me, the John Tavares line. That was a bit of a line shakeup with Ryan Getzlaf, and I'm blanking on the third one. But that line was everywhere as well. And when you start looking, you just look down this lineup. It's a silly lineup. I mean, even Joe Thornton looked good, you know. 37, you know, the bearded crew, the Joe Thornton, Brent Burns combination there, those San Jose Pirates, you know, arr. But, you know, it's kind of funny that they're both giants out there. You know, Brent Burns plays like a giant, and Thornton's playing like one, and it's fun to watch. You know, great for Team Canada, and of course I mentioned Drew Doughty earlier. I mean, I've been a Drew Doughty fan for, well, almost since he got into the league. I've claimed he's been the best defenseman, with all due respect to Erik Karlsson and others. I think he is the best defenseman, and you see it. You see it when you watch him play on Team Canada. It's not just his offense. It's his defense. It's his ability to fix his own mistakes, to fix others' mistakes, to his defense is just off the charts as well. He's such a pleasure to watch. So Team Canada, just rock and rolling. Anyways, it'll be a short conclusion today, and you know, it's a beautiful day out there. I'm missing it. I want to get out there. Fall is here. It's getting crisp at night. I'm sleeping a lot better. One of my favorite shows likes to keep saying, you know, winter is coming. It certainly is. And, you know, when winter is coming, that means hockey season is coming. And loving this World Cup. Go Team Canada. Go Price. Go Weber. And go Hab rookies. You guys keep that up too. I wish you all a fair and great week. And I'll see you next week. This is the Angry Habs Podcast Show.